Here at Paddy Power, we're the home of the Money Back Special, with some incredible offers every single week. Check out the website or app today. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus begambleaware.org.
Hi there, a warm welcome to the Racing Post Weekend Football Postcast. It's Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Liam Flynn and a Paddy Power debutant, Jonathan Smith. We're looking ahead to week 2, all the best bets in the Premier League. Plus we'll look ahead to Europe and lower down divisions to see if there's any nuggets therein. Before we start getting all the tips though, let's do our Postcast traditional welcome to a newcomer, Jonathan Smith from Paddy Power. Jonathan, what is your job title at Paddy Power?
I'm a football trader and I work in risk and price management.
Blimey, that's not an Irish accent, is it? Where are you from?
I'm from Leeds. I'm sunny Yorkshire, so yeah.
Are you a Leeds fan?
I sure am, yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Excellent. Is it good to be able to admit it and say proudly, I'm a Leeds fan, after all those years of problems?
Yeah, definitely. It's a far cry from League One anyway, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you going to get the job done this year? Do you think you'll just roar to the title?
Hopefully so. I think we've enough firepower up front to do it this year, fingers crossed, injury free, and we'll be fine, I think.
Excellent. So we found out you're a Leeds fan. Do you prefer dogs or cats?
Ooh, dogs.
Flat racing or jump racing?
Flat racing.
You've got one correct answer and one wrong answer so far. And what is your favourite Smith song, being a Smith?
Ooh, can't remember.
Is it before your time?
Bit before my time, yeah.
Is it? What's the last song you downloaded? Do people download songs anymore?
No, Spotify, I think, these days.
Spotify,
yeah,
of course it is.
I think it was some form of Ed Sheeran song, I don't know, some random thing, I don't know, yeah.
He's going to upset some, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a small if you're doing a Venn diagram of Leeds fans and Ed Sheeran fans, do you think Jonathan's going to be quite lonely in that middle bit?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Do you specialise in a particular type of football for Paddy Power, or do you just do the whole damn lot, Jonathan?
We just look after general football across the board. My interest is probably English Football League and a bit of National League in there as well.
Beautiful. Are you a better judge than Jason Murphy?
Whoa, I won't go that far. No, certainly not.
Well, we'll let your tips decide that. Good luck, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us. You've got all the odds and also some fancies as well. Let's start off with a few talking points from week 1, Mark. I mean, Liverpool have smashed it. Man City have smashed it. Tottenham looking good. I'm really interested in this battle from places 4 to 10 because I wouldn't say, we're not going to fall into that ludicrous trap of coming to hard and fast conclusions after week 1, but I just think that area is going to be quite interesting this season.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, obviously the Man United smashing Chelsea 4-0 was never a 4-0 game. I mean, it has left its mark, I think, on people. I was pretty disappointed with some of these best of the rest lot. A lot of talk about can they get top 4, can they get top 6? I mean, Leicester and Wolves played out a pretty tight game where I don't think we maybe learnt too much more than they are about where they are in the league table. Everton have gone to Crystal Palace and not improved in the area that they needed to, which is up front. Not to say that they can't, but just on sort of week 1 evidence. And West Ham, I mean, they've been given the nightmare start against Man City. Still lost 5-0 at home, so hard to be too positive about that.
Yeah, but against that, obviously Chelsea, although it wasn't a 4-0, weren't great. Man U, although they won 4-0, it wasn't perfect. And I thought Arsenal were really tepid at Newcastle.
They were, and yet, this is what people said last year about some of these teams. I mean, you look at the way Tottenham, Arsenal, United finished the season, and nobody was able, still not one from that sort of outside the Big Six, was able to make the significant stride needed. And I mean, I don't like to take away too much from week 1, but if I was to take anything, it was that I haven't seen enough yet, and we are only 90 minutes into the new season, but I haven't seen enough to suddenly think that one of those is going to crack it.
Fair enough. That's my anti-post betting portfolio kicked to absolute smithereens. Liam, what did we learn further down the table, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think, like Mark says, we can't read too much into the first game, but Brighton obviously up there as a team that everybody thought would be sort of right down there relegation, and they still very well could be. But I think the way that Graham Potter had them organised away to Watford, I thought Lewis Dunk and Shane Duffy were terrific at their back. Their wide players looked pretty impressive as well. So and obviously Neil Maupay, who's a lot of people are expecting big things of this season. He's still young. He was prolific in the Championship. He got on the score sheet, which would do his confidence wonders as well. So yeah, Brighton for me looked terrific. Newcastle, I mean, I agree. I don't think Arsenal's performance was particularly good, but it was quite concerning from a Newcastle perspective that wasn't Arsenal's strongest team by a long shot. They weren't playing particularly great football. They didn't look particularly devastating going forwards, and yet Newcastle still couldn't score, and they lost the game.
Did you see that bit where Willems came on and didn't know what position he was supposed to be playing?
I didn't
yeah,
see
Yeah, well,
he was told
Shelvey took come off, didn't he?
Yeah, Shelvey came off, so he went and played central midfield. And Steve Bruce, I won't say exactly what he said, but he could be heard shouting, what's going on. He wanted him to play left wing back, and he thought he was coming on and playing in central midfield. So they ended up with nobody playing out as a left wing back at one stage. I mean,
That's a shambles.
yeah.
They didn't have any midfilders on the bench either. I don't
No,
think.
I mean, it's unlucky that Shelvey had to come off, but I mean, the new player coming on, has to know his position. I mean that is, they ended like a rabble, and that doesn't bode well, does it?
No, so you'd have Newcastle as the droppers down there, Liam, and Brighton as the...
Early days, but from first impressions, that's what I'd say.
Jonathan, did you draw any hard and fast conclusions, or did these seeds of a potential thought at least start germinating in your mind, anywhere in the Prem, top or bottom?
Tough one. Top-wise, I think it's hard to look past Man City this year. I just think Sterling I think he will have a very good season. And, I think they're going to be very hard to beat. I think it could be an unbeaten season, in my opinion. And then lower down the league, I'd probably struggle to disagree with Newcastle, really. I think they maybe are going to struggle with goals as the season wears on.
That Joe Linton, or whatever his name is, didn't look all that, did he? I didn't think. Sam Maximin came on and did a few tricks, but not all that.
I don't think there's much in terms of the going forward will be their problem. And I think Southampton could be looking sort of perilous. They struggled against Burnley. Not many teams go to Turf Moor these days and upset the odds or beat Burnley there. It was a tough. I'm going to let it settle for another few weeks and then make me decisions from there, I think, going forward. For the season.
Very sensible. I thought the new boys acquitted themselves kind of reasonably well, didn't they? Sheffield United nicked the draw. Villa were holding on, and then, as Ericsson came on, they absolutely crumbled like a wet biscuit, didn't they, Mark? What about Norwich? Because I thought there was quite a lot to like about what they did in the early minutes at Liverpool.
There was. I mean, I think they had more shots than any other team had last season at Anfield. They still conceded 4 goals in a half. I mean, they left an impression that they could be a bit like a Bournemouth, where I know Bournemouth didn't beat Sheffield United, but they've stayed up. But they'll get smashed a few times, and then they'll go and win the home games that they need to. And they've got one this weekend against Newcastle. They've got that kind of attacking intent in them to pick up 3 points. Whereas you sometimes get these kind of negative teams that come up, and they're like holding on for it. Like if you look at how Brighton survived last season, it was like, can we draw enough games to stay in the Premier League? Whereas I think Norwich are going to, what score do you think they'll lose at Man City, for instance? But when they've got Newcastle at home, when they've got, teams like Crystal Palace at home, or somebody, anyone in that bottom half, but whenever they've got anybody in that bottom half at home, they'll fancy their chances of being able to score enough goals and create enough chances to stay in the division. I mean, it might not work like that, because what happens is, when you get beat, as they may do,
lose your confidence.
Lose the confidence. And confidence is real. I don't, like the expected goals and
momentum isn't real. Confidence is.
I mean, that sort of and that's maybe where Manchester United, that 4-0 against Chelsea, suddenly changes the whole dynamic of potentially their season. Whereas if they draw or lose that game, they go to Wolves on the Monday and it's a horrible game. Now they go there sort of, looking to attack it.
Okay, so we've only had one game in the Prem, but we've had a couple of games already lower down the league. So I want to know what the boys make of that. Liam, have you got any definitive thoughts arising from either Championship, League 1 or 2?
I think Leeds would still be my best bet to go and win the leagues. Very early days, but they looked terrific against Bristol City, a team sort of with great attacking qualities. For me in the Championship, I'd look at them. Obviously, Mansfield have had a bit of a stuttering start in League 2. They seem to love a 2-2 draw at the moment, but I'd still, in the long term, with the attacking firepower of the likes of Nicky Maynard, Andy Cook, I'd still like the look of them. I don't think you can draw too many conclusions even at this early,
Jonathan, you've put yourself up as this Football League and National League judge. What have you got for us further down? Any nice little anti-post thoughts that we might be able to lump on?
I've backed Lincoln to make the playoffs in League One. I think they looked fairly strong, and I think Cowley will get them firing this season. I think there could be a serious threat for certainly the top two as well. But as the season goes on, I think there'll be a sure bet. Obviously, it's hard to look past Leeds at the moment in terms of the Championship, and then League Two. I've been a big fan of Bradford City in terms of their look. They've got the best. I think they've got the best squad on paper in League Two. And
who wins the National League?
National League file for me this season. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's mad having a Yorkshireman on the Paddy Power, isn't it? It's brilliant. Okay, Mark, what have you got further down the divisions? What are your thoughts?
I've.
If you're going to open a fresh position in the last week or so, what might it be on?
Do you know, I think Lincoln in League One. I mean, they were a team I tipped to be top promoted in League One at the start. If there's to be, I think that Portsmouth and Sunderland set a pretty fair standard. Neither has started particularly well, but you expect them to sort of be in the high 80s. But I think Lincoln are just so difficult to play against, so well set up tactically, so just in both boxes. I mean, like, they didn't play that well according to the stats against Rotherham, but they've beaten them 2-0, and they do that a lot. And once I think if you can sort of override XG for a week or two, then people start saying, oh well, it'll come back. But they've been a team just in both boxes, are just so strong at the back, so clinical in the final third. And what I like about the Cowley brothers is that they were this really direct, horrible team to play against when they're in the National League and their first year in League Two. Then he started to add a bit of quality. Andrade came in and did the business for them on the wing. And he hasn't stood still. He's realised that you need to keep improving, keep changing. And like Jack Payne's come in, also Grant has come in as well from Nottingham Forest. And I think that he's developing as a coach as well as that team is developing, and they beat Huddersfield as well, didn't they, in the League Cup last night?
The trouble you might have if you back Lincoln, particularly if they carry on having a good start, is if a Championship manager goes, or even one of the Premier League, they might start looking at it.
I just think from a Premier League point of view, they're just not fashionable enough. 15 years ago, they would have probably already got a
Palace.
Yeah, I mean, but I just don't. It's
really
interesting. In terms of a Championship one, I think it'd have to be top half of the Championship, otherwise they wouldn't bother. And you just look at the way they're going. I mean, Luton went through the division pretty comfortably. Why can't Lincoln?
Okay, back to the Premier League. Let's look at our first game. It takes place on Saturday at 12:30. It's Arsenal versus Burnley, and it's live on BT Sport. Jonathan, how do Paddy Power bet on this?
So we've got Arsenal at 3-10, the draw at 4-1, and Burnley at 15-2.
And because you're the new boy, Jonathan, you can go first. Make it a winner.
Hopefully so. Well, I think Arsenal winning both teams to score is the bet here that I'd put up. 3 of the last 5 outings when Arsenal have met Burnley, they've both ended in an Arsenal score and win. I think Burnley, in terms of the strikers, Barnes and Wood, are going to cause the Arsenal defence numerous problems with the physicality. It's hard to look away from Arsenal winning the game, but I do think Burnley will be a good bet to at least score at the Emirates. I genuinely do think that. So.
God, he's so Yorkshire, isn't he? How do you manage to get understood by the barman in Dublin when you ask for your pint of Tetley's?
Not many people understand me much outside of Yorkshire anyway.
Brilliant.
So there we go.
It's great. I love it. That is a Yorkshire accent. So Arsenal and BTTS for Jonathan. Liam, who do you like here?
I'll go Arsenal -1. I think Burnley put in an excellent shift against Southampton at Turf Moor, but they are a different side on the road. 7 of their 11 wins came at home last season. Arsenal almost looked a little bit like they were playing a pre-season game against Newcastle. It wasn't particularly impressive from either side, but
they do play enough pre-season games.
They do, yeah.
It must be hard for them not to realise there's a little Umbro Cup at the end of it or something.
No, absolutely. But I think there was quite a lot of criticism about the team that Emery had chosen, saying that, well, why aren't these players playing? They've just been, Arsenal have had a very good transfer window. Why aren't they making the most of it? But I think that was probably the best team he could have put out that were 100% fit. I think Ceballos, Nicola Pepe, David Luiz have just come into the club. So, and if you remember last season, he was very similar with the new additions additions like a Lucas Torreira had to kind of wait for his chance. And I think if those players do get starts this time around, then it should be quite a convincing win for Arsenal. They were just formidable at home last season. They won 14 of their 19 matches at the Emirates. So I think.
So for Liam's tip to Kop, then they've got to win by 2 goals or more.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Mark, what are you going to go for here?
I was looking at it and I was thinking, Burnley, they look like awkward opponents for Arsenal. Looked at the head-to-head. Arsenal have won the last 10 against Burnley. You just don't assume that, do you? Burnley, this kind of team that would be
bullied them.
And Arsenal have had the tough scrapes against them, but they've found a way to win. So I'm looking at the second half to be the highest scoring in the 8 of the 10 Premier League games between the two teams. That's exactly happened. There's been more goals in the second half, and that would kind of play into another kind of stereotype you've got of this game, where Burnley defend for their lives and very deep, and Tarkowski and me do what they do, and then eventually Arsenal find a way through. And Arsenal were very much a second half team last season, and as Liam was saying, if some of these players like Lacazette, like Pepe, if they're not fully fit, it might be a case of them not starting and then being brought on, which again I think plays into this bet. If Aubameyang plays up front on his own like he did up at Newcastle, where he did oblige, I think he becomes the first goal scorer bet as well.
Excellent. We are off and running. The 3 p.m. Saturday games are next.
Right, 10 seconds to promote Paddy Power Games. Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games, Paddy Power Games. Advertising. It's easy when you know how. Paddy Power. Enough of the nonsense. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back then. We've got 5 games at 3 p.m. on Saturday. We'll whiz through them. We'll start with Aston Villa versus Bournemouth. How do Paddy Power bet on this one, Jonathan?
We've got Aston Villa at 13-10, the draw at 12-5, and Bournemouth at 15-8.
Liam, it's a tricky old punting test this. What do you think will happen?
I think I'll go for Aston Villa. I was maybe a little bit critical of them on the last postcast. I think that their chief executives come out and defended their kind of big spending this summer, and they
say Liam Flynn
calling
you out,
pinpointed
like Billy
me.
Sharp did to Adrian Durham.
You did get absolutely. You really got stuck in, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I think I just thought with the scattergun approach it was a little bit risky, but they look quite good at Tottenham. I mean, Tottenham did have 31 shots and 71% possession, but they kept them out. I think Tyrone Mings played excellently. Heaton, despite conceding 3 goals, looked very good as well. But I think this time around at home, I think it'll be an excellent atmosphere. Their first home game of the season, and Bournemouth might be a little bit deflated after that late Billy Sharp goal that denied them 3 points on the opening day. So I'd like to look at Aston Villa at odds against.
Who do you like, Mark?
Neither team. I'm going to go for the draw. I'm still trying to work both of them out. I think from Villa's point of view, maybe looked better than the end result, because they were dominated a lot, and Norwich. You could have argued that Norwich played better in terms of general play than what Aston Villa did, and yet because Villa left it late to concede, it looked like they did better. Bournemouth, that wasn't a great performance against Sheffield United, and like I say, I wouldn't. I'm not committing to either team yet. Draw.
You're going for the draw, Jonathan. Who are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for a home win, I think. Aston Villa, they did enough for me at Spurs on Saturday. They defended very well. They were just ran out of steam really in the last 20 minutes. And I think they'll probably bounce back this weekend, I think, against Bournemouth, who obviously are injury plagued themselves. So, I'll go for a home win there, I think.
Okay, another tricky test is Brighton versus West Ham. What's the latest betting on this one?
We've got Brighton at 6-4, 21-10 the draw, and West Ham at 9-5.
Mark, what do you like in this one?
Both teams to score. That Brighton 3-4-3 is going to make them more dangerous going forward. I think Mopé, one of the signings of the summer, no doubt about that. I think he could have improved any of the bottom half teams, and even as a backup striker for even somebody as high up as Tottenham. I think just as I rate him so highly, and I think that Brighton are going to be a more aggressive team this season, no doubt about that. West Ham, hopeless at the back last season. Their XG, they outperformed it more than any other team. Fabianski made the most saves in the Premier League, which is a good thing in one way. He was the hammer of the year, but it's a bad thing in another, isn't it, that you're having to do that much work. But I like West Ham going forward, and they'll have more of the ball than they did against Man City, and I think this could be a really good watch. It'll be the 3 o'clock game I'm most interested in, I think.
Okay, Jonathan, what's your verdict?
I think I'm going to go for a home win here. I think Graham Potter's got his side well drilled, as we mentioned earlier on. And I think, they look very good against Watford. And, it's hard for me to look away from Brighton at home.
Potter seems quite an interesting sort of guy, doesn't he? Liam, we're going to go for a full house. Oh, no, we're not full house because we've got both teams to score from Mark. Jonathan likes Brighton. What do you like?
I like the look of the draw. I think, with Byrne, Duncan, Duffy, and at the back, Brighton look very disciplined. Those wide players, Solly March, Montoya, Locadia, they look like they can hit teams on the break. West Ham start to the season very difficult to gauge when you're playing Manchester City, get thumped 5-0. They still managed over 400 passes against probably the best ball retainers in the division. So they weren't completely disgraced in terms of their performance, I don't think, because there was the late goals and there was the penalty retake. So there are different ways you can look at it. And I mean, these sides actually drew 2-2 back in January, and I think going for another draw here looks to be the way to go.
Everton versus Watford is next. Jonathan, give us the match prices and then we'll stick with you for a tip.
All right, we've got Everton at 4-6, the draw at 11-4, and Watford at 4-1. I think Everton half-time, full-time here. I think looking at last weekend at Selhurst Park, they were very unlucky not to score in the first half. They were all over Palace, and I think Palace got away with it.
Did they play them twice? That wasn't the game I watched. No, they were. I mean, Sigurdsson had a good chance early on, which he scuffed, didn't he? Normally, I'm quite happy when the boys lambast Palace. I'm not quite sure all over us is right, Jonathan. You were going so well on your debut, mate, and then you had to go and slag Palace off. Go on, mate.
I do think there'll be a good bet this weekend, though, but we'll discuss that later, I'm sure.
Okay, so Everton half-time, full-time, yeah? You were that down on Watford's performance, but it was a shocking result on paper, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a poor result. I just didn't think they turned up. I don't think they were at the races on Saturday, the looks of it.
Okie doke. Liam, what do you make of this one?
I'll go under 2.5 goals, shade of odds against. I put it up last week, the goalless draw against Palace. I think only Liverpool and Chelsea had more home clean sheets than Everton last season. I think it could probably be another low-scoring encounter. They did struggle, I think, Everton. I see what Jonathan's saying, but I thought they struggled to carve out any real clear-cut chances against Palace. Like I said, they had the Sigurdsson attempt, but other than that, it wasn't a lot to go on. Only had 3 shots on target. And a lot of their new signings, obviously, Iwobi, Moise Kean, they might take a little bit of time to bed in, but their back 5 is pretty settled. So I think they can hope to at least keep a clean sheet against Watford, who may be boosted by the addition of Ismail Assar, but I think they might be a little bit rocked by that opener. So, I think it could be a low-scoring one at Goodison Park.
Mark, I certainly didn't see Watford 0 Brighton 3 coming. What do Watford do now to try and get back on track?
I think they go back to basics and really try and shut up shop, which is why I would also like the look of under 2.5 goals. Just on Watford very quickly, if you ever go back, I just looked at the sort of anti-post prices this time last year. Watford were among the favourites for relegation, and Gracia was, I think he was second favourite in the sack race. So really interesting, and I missed it as well myself. Really interesting that it's the same team effectively. Maybe last season was the fluke and now this is the real Watford, but I mean, let's give it another 6 matches or so before we really sort of nail that one down. But I think it's one to watch out for at least. But under 2.5 goals, I wouldn't normally mention friendly form, but I did see Everton's last 5 friendly matches, or actually their total 5 friendly matches, produced 3 goals, which is incredible. Hopefully not too many.
At both ends?
Yeah, both ends. An aggregate of 3 goals in their 5 matches, and the first one of those against a foreign team was 1-1. So, I mean, it was astonishing. But the last goal they conceded at Goodison Park was back on February the 6th. So, they're very good at the back. I wouldn't be surprised if they won the game, but it might be like a 1-0.
Do you know what? I've got to put a shout out to Seamus Coleman, who I think is one of the most underrated Premier League footballers. I think he's a fantastic right back. He was brilliant again last week. I absolutely love him. Right then, we're going to sound the They Played for Both Clubs klaxon for our next game. Norwich versus Newcastle. The boys have got their thinking caps on. Jonathan, what's the match betting here?
We've got Norwich 13-10, the draw at 23-10, and Newcastle at 2-1.
I've got 2 for they managed both clubs.
Tim Krul.
No.
Oh, he didn't manage both. No. Can
I get my managed first?
Go.
Newton and Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Did Bruce manage Norwich?
He
played for Norwich. All right, they played for one club and managed another. So Tim Krul gets us off and running.
Rolf
Fox is a great one. That is exactly right. There was another one of not Hayden. Who is it now? Oh, Chris Sutton. Did he play for either club?
Don't remember him playing for. Don't remember.
Oh no, he didn't. No, you're right. God,
I've got Rolf Fox.
You got anything for us, Jonathan? On they played for both clubs?
No, I'm struggling with this one. I'm not really an aficionado in Norwich and Newcastle.
Okay, well, if anything comes to you, you can just blurt them out. In the meantime, we'll get the tips. Mark?
I'm going to go for a Norwich win in this game. at least had a plan against Liverpool. It maybe didn't always come off. I thought Newcastle were terrible against a weakened Arsenal team that drifted. They went off like 6-5, 5-4. I mean, it was a Europa League Arsenal team that they played, and the first half they were okay. Once they conceded the goal, the lack of appetite to try and get back into it. Apart from
Bellamy.
Maxime, apart from him, like they could do a Craig Bellamy up front now, Newcastle. That kind of like spark that's really lacking. I mean, for an opening day, and I understand why the fans are so annoyed with Mike Ashley. The weather wasn't great, but just such a flat performance. So I'll go for Norwich. If you want a first goal scorer, I thought Steeperman showed up quite well at Anfield in terms of his attempts. He's double figures to open the scoring and plays off Pukki.
I tell you, I thought was a nice little player. Was a guy called Todd Cantwell, who looked like a little Jack Grealish on the left wing. I thought he had some really good little touches.
He's nice. And Buendia on the flank got a lot of assists in the Championship last year. I'm not sure about Norwich defensively, but of course Newcastle maybe haven't got the punch to hurt them.
Jonathan, what do you think will happen here?
Oh, this is. I think this could end up in a draw, but we feel that Norwich are a little bit too short home here, even though Newcastle, as we've discussed, didn't have probably the best performance, but they restricted Arsenal really, and they nearly could have nicked an equaliser in the 90th minute there. So we just think that Norwich is slightly too big at home. So, but I'm going to put up the draw for this game because I'm torn between both sides here.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Jolly good. Did Darren Huckabee play for Newcastle?
I don't think he did. That was about the only team he didn't play for.
Yeah. What's going to happen here, Liam?
I'll go for a Norwich win. It was obviously a baptism of fire going to Anfield first game of the season, but they were unlucky. It was first there was the own goal, and then there was sort of a brief lapse in concentration. 2-0 down in 20 minutes, and that was pretty much game over. But as we said, there were signs of promise. So two wide men I was going to mention, Cantwell and Buendia, I thought they were terrific. And that goal, although it was obviously a late consolation from Teemu Pukki, I think will just do him the world of confidence going forward to the rest of the season. There was a lot of people saying, can he do it in the Premier League? And to get a goal at Anfield in the opening game will do him wonders, do his confidence wonders. Newcastle, as I've already said, I think they played the game at very slow pace against Arsenal, lost shape and direction when Shelvey came off, and I think this could be another loss for them.
Poor start on the old day played for both clubs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geographically, it's not one you wouldn't be happy if if you did the misses, you're in Newcastle and you've got to go down to Norfolk or the other way round. I mean, you can't commute from there, can you?
No, you can't. Oh, producer Rob's come up with Jacob Murphy, yes.
Well, both of
them.
Yeah.
Brothers who played for both clubs. That's a new one. That's astonishing. Okay. Well, it's lucky we're not doing they played for both clubs for our next game, Southampton, Liverpool. Otherwise, we will be here all night. What's the latest betting on this one, Jonathan?
We've got Southampton at 13-2, 4-1 the draw, and Liverpool at 4-11.
Does 4-11 Liverpool do it for you, Liam?
No, I mean I think they'll win, but I'd like to look at both teams to score. Just Anfield's renowned as a defensive fortress, but Liverpool got breached by that late Pukki goal against Norwich, and I think they could concede against Southampton. Alisson's absence isn't something that I'd necessarily read into something as making your betting decisions on this game. Adrian is still a very solid Premier League goalkeeper.
Yeah, but isn't it more about the distribution?
Yes.
And the start.
Yeah, no. In terms of going forward, Alisson's obviously more comfortable on the ball than Adrian, but I think in this occasion it shouldn't bother them too much. That said, I still think Southampton, they won the shot count, they had more possession away to Burnley, and they've got a really nice looking front three of Che Adams, Nathan Redmond, and Danny Ings. And both teams actually scored in 10 of Liverpool's 19 away matches last season, perhaps more than you'd expect.
Okay, Mark, Southampton were a team that you've been very keen on since the change of manager. Were you taken aback by what happened there, or one of those things? Did the numbers make it look like they're a bit unlucky?
I mean, going to Burnley when the wind's like that is you wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be honest. And I think that did play a part in the game. I mean, it was just like a blitz, wasn't it? There 3 goals felt like out of nothing really. And once a bit like the Chelsea game, where I think the final score probably didn't give a true reflection on sort of the game, and it's just one of them things. I think we'll see Southampton improve on that. Like I said, Burnley would have been licking their lips when the wind was. I was at Gillingham and I saw what the wind was like there. I can imagine what it was like at Turf Moor as well. It was really difficult to play football, and I think it probably suited Burnley more. So in this game, Liverpool, I I don't think it's ideal. They're playing the Super Cup on Wednesday and then got this quick turnaround on Saturday. And I don't think it's ideal that Alisson is out either. I'm going to go for Liverpool to win and over 2.5 goals in this game. I think Southampton have got a bit about them up front, and Liverpool, if they click going forward, can clear that line by themselves. So Liverpool to win and over 2.5 goals.
And what's your tip, Jonathan?
For this one, I'm thinking Liverpool winning both teams to score. I do think they've potentially got a bit fragile, a little bit at the back. They were probably Norwich outlined that a little bit on Friday night, really. I just think, I think Liverpool will be too strong for Southampton, but I think they potentially could leak a goal down there. And obviously, the late get back after the Super Cup this evening, that's going to potentially impact Liverpool's preparation for this game. So.
Liverpool and both. Top man, right then, the game of the weekend is undoubtedly the 5:30 p.m. Saturday game. It's Man City versus Tottenham. And when you hear Jonathan read out the prices, some of you might do what I do. It was like, really? That short? Go on, Jonathan.
We've got Man City at 3-10, the draw at 9-2, and Spurs at 15-2.
Do you see what I mean? 15-2. No, 3-10 Man United. Man City. I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah, people said that about West Ham last week, didn't they? I think we've got to just get it out of our heads, Bruce, that this Premier League and it's competitive. And I mean, Man City have got 198 points in the last 2 years. They've won 17 of their last 18 matches. I mean, I think
that's the reality. That's the new reality.
Quoting the Love Island gang, it is what it is.
So what happens then?
I'm going to go for Man City half-time, full-time. It landed in all 6 of their games against the Big Six at home last season. And I mentioned this before the Champions League final. Tottenham in big matches start slowly, and then they were 1 down inside a minute in Madrid. They just do it all the time, and it's too much. It's too much for it to be coincidence. And at City last year, Foden scored after 5 minutes, and I just don't like the way they start matches. And I also think that this potential bust up with Vertonghen's a bad.
Oh, tell me about that. I don't know about that.
He didn't. He was out. He dropped from the squad against Aston Villa, and then Davinson Sanchez and Danny Rose combined to sort of offer that goal to John McGinn.
What's that about? Is he angling for a move?
No, there was a suggestion, and only a reported suggestion, that he'd been told he was on the bench for the game, kicked off, and then he wasn't on the bench either. Vertonghen,
it's not like him, is it?
Apparently it is, yeah. Apparently Pochettino, he likes that about Vertonghen. He's sort of one of the few sort of characters within that Tottenham dressing room. But and he's also arguably their best defender. But I think it's a problem if it develops into anything more than that. Kyle Walker-Peters did very well against Aston Villa. It's one thing doing well against Aston Villa, quite another when you're up against Manchester City. I don't think Tottenham have got the defensive sort of nous to keep City out for too long. And if you have a look at the goal scorers from that Champions League dramatic game, Son, of course, is suspended. So you're taking away some of the forward counter-attacking threat. Tottenham's away record, they've lost 9 of their last 11 away matches, which for a team that's supposedly the 3rd best in the Premier League, that's not good enough. Their last domestic away victory, January the 20th.
Blimey, O'Reilly. Man City for Mark. Who for Liam?
I think Man City will win the game, but I think the best bet might be Raheem Sterling to score first. Obviously, City at their irrepressible best against West Ham, and he was central to that with his hat-trick, also involved in that Gabriel Jesus offside goal given by VAR. But he's already
done well to get this far through without mentioning VAR, I promise you.
The only podcast going.
I'm saving it for my column tomorrow.
But he's already marked himself out as a serious Golden Boot contender with that hat-trick, and he, of course, netted a brace when these two sides met in the Champions League last. And he's typically kind of deployed on the left-hand side of that City front three, and obviously Kyle Walker-Peters, I think he'd had a fairly solid performance against Aston Villa, but that's certainly a problematic area for Tottenham's backline at the moment, so I think he could exploit that.
And Jonathan?
I'm going to go for a Man City win, and I'm going to go for Sterling any time as a double. I just think he was brilliant last weekend against West Ham, and I think there's going to be far too much space in Spurs' defence. The push forward against Villa, did the full-backs, and it left a lot of gaps there, and it'd be easy for them to counter-attack Man City with the pace that they've got up front. I think it could be at least. I think a City win to 0 as well won't put anybody off backing that either. So I think Man City should win this one.
Could you put Sterling up for the Golden Boot, do you think, Jonathan? Because, I mean, obviously with Sané's injury, he's going to play not every week, but he's going to play a lot more than he might have done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it definitely will be a good call, Golden Boot for the season. I think he obviously may share a little bit of the goal load with Aguero, but yeah, definitely he's going to get more game time this year, and he's going to see a lot more of the ball.
Top man. Right then, let's do Sunday next.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Liam Flynn and Paddy Power's Jonathan Smith. We're looking ahead to Sunday's 2 live matches, the first of which takes place at 2 o'clock at Bramall Lane. It's live on Sky Sports. It's Sheffield United versus Crystal Palace. Jonathan, take it away with a show of betting.
We've got Sheffield United at 6-4, 2-1 the draw, and 15-8 Crystal Palace.
Liam, you can go first. What will happen here?
I'll go for the draw. I think Sheffield United did very well to snatch a point away to Bournemouth. They looked organised. They disrupted Bournemouth's sort of passing movements for a lot of the game. Atmosphere will be electric in this game for their first home match of the season. I get the impression, I don't know what you think, but I get the impression that end product could be a bit of a problem for Palace this season. I know obviously Zaha's back, going to be involved now, but they had some key chances and they just couldn't put them away against Everton. Max Meyer, obviously, we've sort of fluffed a very good chance. I mean, goal scoring is not his area of expertise as such anyway, but I don't think Palace are going to go there and lose. They took more points on the road than any team outside of the top 6 last season. They have a very good away record, and I think that it could be a pretty cagey atmosphere, so I'll go for a draw.
Liam's going for the draw. Jonathan, what are you going for?
I'm going for an away win.
Good man. Well done. That's it. You've cemented your place on the postcast. Go on then. Why is that, mate?
6th best away form in the league last year. They're only a point behind Manchester United in terms of the form table away from home. And I think the pace of Zaha is going to cause the Sheffield United defence all sorts of problems. And I think Zaha anytime probably will be a good bet here, I think, this weekend.
Well done, Jonathan. Good stuff, Mark.
I feel like there's a centre-half who played for Norwich and Newcastle. Sorry.
I know. Well, so what happens is we walk out of the studio and Wilco goes, who was it this week? And you say Norwich and Newcastle. And he'll rattle off names for about
the 70s. In this game, sorry, Bruce. Darren Peacock or Steve Howe? No, maybe not. But anyway, I'm going to go for Palace draw no bet in this one. I like Palace defensively, still pretty strong. And even though they've had their injury problems at the back, they didn't offer up too many opportunities to Everton. And I don't expect them to sort of in any game that they play, really. They are, very well organised under Hodgson. And
well protected as well.
Yeah. The midfield... maybe that's a problem with the goal scoring, that there isn't anybody there that sort of, is given that licence to go and join in and sort of get sort of his 8 to 10 goals or whatever, or maybe not even that many, but outside Milivojevic, of course, who on the penalties. But I'm assuming Zaha will play in this game. He had his sort of run out.
I think he'll be up front with Benteke.
Yeah. And
Ayew was excellent last week.
And that, to me, I think is enough on the break to hurt Sheffield United. And different scenario now for Sheffield United. Obviously, they went to Bournemouth and were probably a little bit more defensive than we saw them in the Championship, a little bit more pragmatic. Nothing wrong with that. They eventually got their point from that sort of messy set piece. Just wonder, Palace won't mind. Palace will give Sheffield United the ball. And I wonder, Sheffield United didn't have that much possession in the Championship last season, even for a team that was finished second. So I just wonder what they'll do with it. And that's Palace on the break might just be the ones.
Excellent stuff. 4:30, Chelsea Leicester. This will be an interesting game. Jonathan, what's the latest betting on this?
And we've got Chelsea at 8-11, the draw at 5-2, and Leicester at 7-2.
And we'll stick with you, Jonathan. What's your idea of the best bet at the Bridge?
Best bet at the Bridge. I'm going to have to go on away win based on Sunday's performance at Old Trafford. Chelsea were defensively all over the place. Going forward, they looked very good in the first half. Thought they were unlucky not to score, obviously at the bar. And I think the travel potentially from the Super Cup could take its toll a little bit on Chelsea here. And I think Leicester do look very good going forward with Vardy, Perez and Maddison up there. I think they're going to cause Chelsea some problems this weekend.
Mark, did I see you nodding your head when Jonathan said away win?
Yeah, the 2 bets. One would be both teams to score, would be the one that probably the kind of more solid look to them. Chelsea, for all they were beaten 4-0, they've hit the woodwork twice. De Gea made a couple of saves as well with his feet. Barkley had that one that just went wide, and also there was a cross that Tammy Abraham made probably the wrong run, and that could be a problem for Chelsea this season.
Who's their best forward, by the way?
it depends what you want from the forward. I think overall, I would say it's Giroud. But if you want somebody to press from the front, that's not something he can particularly do, and that's why he went for Tammy Abraham. Defensively, though, and Chelsea have made a massive rick getting rid of David Luiz, unless he's had a bust up with Lampard, and Lampard said that he didn't, and it was his decision to let him go. It's absolutely the wrong decision to let. I still think their best. Well, I mean, Rudiger would maybe be their best defender, but that partnership was one that got them to third in the Premier League last season. Luiz has got a zoomer in him. I mean, but I still would have him all day long. In that back four. I mean, you don't get to be. To have played at the level he has if he's useless. And Barney Roney did a great piece in The Guardian about how people have got David Luiz wrong. I think he's the signing of the summer for Arsenal, how much he improves them and damages Chelsea. So at the back, I've got my concerns about Chelsea. I'm also going to have a bit on Leicester to win and both teams to score. I think Leicester will really enjoy playing the space that Chelsea leave behind them, and they didn't enjoy that against Wolves because Wolves don't do that, and Vardy had nothing to work in. I think they'll get more space. Just there'll be a nervousness around Chelsea if things don't start well.
Liam, do you give the hosts more chance than Jonathan and Mark do?
Yeah, I do. Maybe a slightly unpopular opinion, but I'll go with a Chelsea win. I think Leicester were quite wasteful in that opener with Wolves. Only one of those 16 shots they had was actually on target. I think the 4-0 defeat for Chelsea was a very harsh reflection of the game. As Mark said, they hit the woodwork early with Abraham and Emerson as well, either side of that dodgy penalty. If that, it's easy to say in hindsight, but if that goes in, it's a completely different game. Mason Mount, Ross Barkley could have quite exciting seasons from midfield. They're energetic young players who like to move the ball forwards, and I think there could be a little bit of a switch around going later into the season. Zuma maybe dropping out, and they'll look maybe to partner Rudiger and Christensen at the back, which I'm a big admirer of Christensen. I think he's a great centre half. So yeah, I'd look at Chelsea to edge this one.
Right, then we've got Monday night match, which is always good news, and it's a cracker. 8 p.m. at Molineux, Wolves versus Manchester United. How do you bet on this one?
Wolves 23-10, the draw 11-5, and Man United 6-5.
I will be very interested to hear what the boys think on this game. Mark, you lead on.
I'll go for Wolves. They beat Man United twice at Molineux last season. They beat Chelsea, they beat Arsenal, they beat Tottenham away. They did what they did to Leicester, and maybe could have won the game that the goal that was ruled out. They haven't changed from last season, and I don't see why necessarily the result will be any different this time. I mean, I take the point what was mentioned earlier there about it was harsh on Chelsea, the 4-0. My biggest takeaway of that wasn't necessarily that means Chelsea are good. It means I don't think the Manchester United. This was a Champions League final. That was a Champions League final a few years ago with Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, Drogba, all quality players. And I mean, I thought the standard, it was an exciting game. The standard was nowhere near a Man United-Chelsea game. I mean, and if the game stops at an hour and finishes probably how it should have at 1-1, people would be massively questioning Manchester United because they got that second goal against the run of play, and then the game just gets blown apart. I mean, I need to see much more from Man United before I'm...
Do you like the defence anymore?
Well, not overly. If those shots go 2 inches the other way, they've conceded 2 goals in the first half, and everyone says they've wasted 130 million. So, no. I mean, what they're seeing 8 games time. I'd love Mourinho's bit on Luke Shaw. He's still crucifying him, even though he's gone. But I think he's right. Lukaku sent out that tweet, didn't he? They criticised Lukaku for being overweight, and Lukaku sent out what was confidential sort of information where his sprints were right where they needed to be, and there's like this chart of where the sprints are, and it's Lukaku, Rashford, blah blah blah, and then like Luke Shaw is at the bottom and sort of right to the left of the poor Luke Shaw. I mean, I think
thinking more and more like when Gary Barlow played in Soccer Aid. It just reminds me of Gary Barlow.
Maybe Manchester United have taken this big leap forward, but maybe they haven't. And if they haven't, they're too short here. And I think that the Wolves are pretty much where they were last year.
Jonathan, are you going to be back in Wolves as well?
Yeah, I'm going to join the club here. I think Wolves to win and both teams to score. I do think Man United will score. I think the front three of Rashford, Lingard and Martial probably will cause Wolves a few problems, but I think Wolves will shuffle the pack. They've got Pjanic midweek in the Europa League. Santos will shuffle the pack around and try and get his players fresh for this one on Monday evening. And I think Wolves win and both teams to score here.
And Liam, what's your view?
That's the makings of an exciting game, but I think it could be quite low scoring. I'd go for under 2.5 goals. I think Maguire and Wan-Bissaka are great additions despite the money that was paid. I think Wan-Bissaka looked very good in that first game. And I think that Manchester United seem to have finally established a solid defence. And I expect, similar to Wolves, that their approach this season could be to sort of soak up pressure and then hit teams on the break, which is exactly kind of the system that got Wolves so far last season. So I think they could possibly cancel each other out. Wolves obviously have this trip to hosting Pjanic in the Europa League, but they've got a 4-0 lead in that, so they can rest some players, but their squads could still be a touch fatigued from all of the early European action, so I think it could be quite a cagey affair.
Okay, let's look at what the boys fancy further down the divisions and see if they've got any European fancies. Don't give away your naps, but Mark, if there's anything we should be looking at outside the Prem, where should we focus?
Outside of the nap, I like Port Vale to avoid defeat at Salford, who conceded 30 shots at Crawley last week. I mean, Crawley had about 30 shots in the whole of last season, so I don't quite know how that happened. A team that me and Dan Charles were very negative on at the start, Doncaster, have made absolutely abysmal start. 1-1 with Gillingham and Rochdale. Says an unbeaten league campaign, but I mean they were outshot on target in both of those games. And I saw Gillingham last week, and they're hopeless. So I don't know how they didn't beat them. They were then knocked out of the cup by Grimsby. They lost 8 of their players that started that playoff semi-final against Charlton. Fleetwood going very nicely under Joey Barton. I think they signed very well. Another one would be the Sunday live game, Reading v Cardiff. Both teams to score. Cardiff have had a 3-2 and a 2-1 already. Reading, in bringing in Zhao and Puskás, I mean, they've suddenly transformed their attack. Puskás is going to be one of the best strikers in the Championship, no doubt about that. In France, St Etienne to beat Brest. They've got a budget advantage of over 70 million euros against them, so I quite like them. And then what else have I got? In terms of favourites, I think Betis to beat Valladolid and Atletico at home to Getafe would be quite a nice double in Spain.
Lovely. Liam?
I just have the one big one for the Bundesliga curtain raiser on Friday. Bayern Munich host Hertha Berlin. I think Hertha Berlin will draw a double chance in the first game of the season at 4-1. It is massive. Hertha have got a bit of a reputation as a bogey team for them. In fact, they were the only team in Germany in the Bundesliga that Bayern Munich didn't score against in the calendar year of 2018. I believe they drew 0-0 and then beat them 2-0 in the reverse fixture. Got some great attacking players, and Andre Duda, the midfield, could be one to look at in the goal scorer markets for that as well.
That is an opportune moment for me to plug the European season-long Postcast, which is out now, and in which Mark and Liam are both very down on the hot favourites for the German title, Bayern Munich. Jonathan, what have you got for us? You're a bit of an expert in the non-league stuff as well, so have you got any fancies for us down at that level?
I think there's a bit of value potentially in Halifax away to Aldershot, and I just think Halifax have been going well this season. I don't think Aldershot, they got back into the league by default, obviously because of Gateshead going into administration. I think that's a good bet, and I also think Fylde at home to Woking as well. Woking never really travelled too well, and I think Fylde, the home form is pretty damn good, so yeah, I'll probably go with those two this weekend.
I bet you don't get misunderstood when you order drinks in Halifax, do you?
I certainly don't, no.
Have you been drinking in Halifax? A good place for a night out?
No, I've never actually been. I've only ever been during the day, so on the afternoon, on once, and that's it. I normally go to Leeds, so that's my go-to.
All right then, mate, let's get the naps.
This will not be beaten.
Jonathan, away you go. What's your best bet of the whole weekend?
Lincoln at home to Southend. Southend looked very poor against Blackpool last weekend, and Lincoln look a solid outfit this year. And I think the 10-11's a cracking price if you can get them.
Jolly good. There's a Friday night game, and I fancy Fulham very strongly. They're 6-4 to win at Huddersfield, who I think are in a bit of trouble this week. Mark?
Leeds away at Wigan could be a rugby league game, this couldn't it? But hopefully a rugby league score in favour of Leeds. Wigan, I think they've signed quite well, but their performance is not sure that they've been up to scratch. Certainly not the last two. Anyway, Leeds are the best team in the Championship. They proved that against Bristol City. No idea, they chucked it away against Nottingham Forest, but I thought the performance was good enough to suggest that they are the best team in the Championship. And I think if they were in the Premier League now, there's only about sort of 11 teams I'd say are better than them. So I mean, I think they'd sort of be jostling for sort of around about that sort of 12th mark, and therefore 10 to 11 at Wigan looks fair enough.
And Liam,
I'm also going Lincoln to beat Southend. Started the season with 2 league wins, made it 3-0 with defeat of Huddersfield in the League Cup, and Southend have started with defeats to Coventry and Blackpool.
Okay, so it is a treble this week then. It's Fulham, Leeds and Lincoln. And Jonathan, can you do us a nice little enhanced treble before kick-off on that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll look to get that up on site as soon as possible. Yeah, we'll do an enhanced treble.
So if you go to paddypower.com football and then specials, you will get the Postcast treble. There is great football coverage every week and at racingpost.com and in the newspaper. We are back next Thursday for another Racing Post football postcast.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18 plus. Be Gamble aware.